The crash of metal equipment echoed through the Interplanetary Academy of Xenomedicine, as a first-year human exchange student named Jack Reynolds lost his balance on the slippery laboratory floor. Jack had been carrying a heavy container of experimental soil samples when his foot slid out from under him, sending him tumbling down with a sickening crack as his arm struck the edge of a metal workstation. The classroom full of alien medical students froze in horror as Jack lay sprawled on the floor, his arm bent at an unnatural angle. By the 7 moons of Zortak, someone call the emergency medical team, shouted Professor Vex, a tall, green-skinned Xylonian with 4 arms and bulbous eyes that were now wide with panic. Human injured. This is not a drill. The alien students scattered in different directions, some reaching for communication devices while others simply backed away from the fallen human. In the chaotic moment, no one noticed that Jack had already pulled himself up to a sitting position and was examining his clearly broken arm with a puzzled expression. "It's okay," Jack said, his voice strained but remarkably steady. "I just broke my arm. It just needs a cast." The room fell silent. 27 alien medical students stared at him in complete disbelief. Trill, a small blue Nixarian with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around her head, approached cautiously. "Human Jack, your skeletal support structure has suffered a complete fracture. You require immediate medical intervention and pain management protocols." Jack nodded, wincing slightly as he cradled his broken arm. "Yeah, I know. That's why I need a cast. It's no big deal, really. This isn't my first broken bone." Professor Vex rushed over, all 4 of his hands hovering nervously around Jack but not touching him. "Do not move. The emergency team will be here shortly. We must stabilize you before you go into shock." "I'm not going into shock," Jack replied, looking slightly amused despite the pain evident in his eyes. "Really, Professor, I appreciate the concern, but humans break bones all the time. My arm will heal in about 6 weeks with a proper cast." Cleeks, a tall, insectoid student with a carapace that shimmered with iridescent blues and greens, stepped forward. "Professor, I believe the human may be delirious from pain. Their endorphin response might be masking the severity of the trauma." "I'm not delirious," Jack insisted, though he did grimace as he tried to adjust his position. "Look, can someone just help me get to the medical bay so they can set this and put a cast on it? The sooner it's set, the better it will heal." The door to the lab slid open with a hiss, and 2 medical personnel rushed in with a hovering stretcher. Both were Andorians, with pale blue skin and antennae that twitched with concern as they assessed the situation. "Step aside, please," said the first medic, kneeling beside Jack. "Human patient with traumatic injury." "It's a broken arm," Jack said, his tone almost conversational. "Radius, I think, maybe ulna too, hard to tell without an X-ray." The second medic ran a scanner over Jack's arm and looked at the readings with surprise. "He's right, clean break of the radius." "But your pain readings are unusual." "Oh, it hurts plenty," Jack admitted, "but it's not like I've never felt pain before." As the medics helped Jack onto the stretcher, Professor Vex addressed the still stunned class. "Well, it appears we have an unexpected learning opportunity today. Let's follow to the medical bay and observe the treatment of human fractures." The procession moved through the gleaming corridors of the academy, with Jack lying calmly on the stretcher while 27 alien medical students followed behind, whispering among themselves. "How is he not screaming?" whispered Drax, a reptilian student with scales that changed color with his emotions, currently a confused yellow-green. "I heard humans have primitive nervous systems," replied Melia, a gaseous entity contained in a humanoid exosuit. "Perhaps they cannot fully process pain signals." "That's not true," corrected Trill. "Human nervous systems are quite complex. My xenobiology textbook says they have pain receptors throughout their bodies." In the medical bay, Dr. Zorn, the head of Xenomedicine, was waiting. With translucent skin that revealed the complex circulatory system beneath, the doctor's surprise was literally visible as the blood vessels in his face darkened. "What happened?" Dr. Zorn asked, examining the scanner readings. I fell and broke my arm, Jack explained simply. Just need it set and put in a cast so it can heal. Dr. Zorn looked perplexed. You're being remarkably calm about this, Mr. Reynolds. Jack shrugged with his good shoulder. It's just a broken bone, not my first rodeo. Rodeo? Several alien students murmured in confusion. Human expression, Jack clarified. It means I've dealt with this before. Dr. Zorn directed the medical staff to prepare for setting the bone. We'll need to administer pain suppression first. That would be great, thanks, Jack said, though I could probably do without if supplies are limited. The alien students exchanged shocked glances. Mr. Reynolds, Dr. Zorn said firmly, we have adequate pain management resources. There is no need for you to endure unnecessary suffering. Jack nodded. I appreciate that, I just didn't want to make a fuss. As the medical team prepared Jack for the procedure, Professor Vex gathered the students in a semicircle at a respectful distance. This is an extraordinary opportunity to observe human resilience firsthand, the professor said quietly. Note the patient's calm demeanor despite significant trauma. Cleeks raised a segmented arm. Professor, is this typical human behavior or is student Reynolds an anomaly? Before the professor could answer, Jack called out from the treatment table. I can hear you, you know, and no, I'm pretty normal for a human. Most of us have broken something at some point. The medical staff administered a pain blocker, and Dr. Zorn began manipulating the broken bone back into proper alignment. The alien students watched in fascination as Jack observed the procedure with interest rather than horror. Fascinating, murmured Drax, his scales shifting to an impressed blue. He's watching his own bone being manipulated. After the bone was set, a medical technician approached with what looked like a high-tech mesh. We'll apply the osteogenic accelerator wrap now. It should reduce healing time by approximately 60%. Jack's eyes widened with interest. That's amazing. On Earth, we just use fiberglass or plaster casts and wait it out. Dr. Zorn looked surprised. You mean you don't use cellular regeneration technology for bone injuries? Not typically, Jack replied. Our bones are pretty good at healing themselves if they're properly aligned and immobilized. It just takes time. As the technician applied the advanced healing wrap, which hardened into a lightweight but rigid cast, Trill approached the treatment table. Human Jack, I have a question if you're willing, she said, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Were you not afraid when you realized your bone was broken? Jack considered this. Not afraid, no. It hurts and it's inconvenient, but broken bones aren't usually dangerous unless they break the skin or damage blood vessels or nerves. But the pain. Trill persisted, genuinely confused. How do you remain so functional? Jack smiled. Pain is just information. It tells me something's wrong and I need to fix it. Once I know what's wrong and I'm taking steps to address it, panicking doesn't help anything. Professor Vex, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. Class, I believe we've just identified an important cross-species difference in trauma response. Human Reynolds, would you be willing to participate in a discussion panel on human pain perception and management once you're recovered? Sure, Jack agreed as the medical team finished securing his cast. Happy to help. Dr. Zorn helped Jack sit up. The cast needs to remain in place for 2 weeks. The accelerator technology will speed the healing process significantly, but you must avoid strenuous activity with that arm. 2 weeks? Jack looked genuinely surprised. That's amazing. It would be 6 to 8 weeks on Earth. Perhaps we should schedule a lecture on comparative medical technologies as well, Professor Vex suggested, his 4 hands gesturing enthusiastically. As Jack was cleared to leave the medical bay, the alien students formed a curious circle around him, each burning with questions. Have all humans broken bones? Asked Melia, her exo-suit humming softly. Not all, but many of us have, Jack replied as he carefully stood up, testing his balance. I broke my leg when I was 10, falling out of a tree. My sister broke her collarbone playing sports. And you were this calm then too? Drax asked, his scales rippling with curiosity. Jack laughed. Well, I cried when I was 10, but you learn to handle these things as you get older. The group began walking back toward the dormitory section of the academy, with Jack moving slowly but steadily. The alien students maintained a protective formation around him as if he might suddenly collapse. "You don't need to hover," Jack assured them. "I'm perfectly capable of walking." "Protocol dictates assistance for injured individuals," insisted Cleeks, staying close to Jack's side. "I appreciate the concern," Jack said, "but really, a broken arm doesn't affect my ability to walk." As they reached the dormitory wing, news of the incident had already spread. A small crowd of alien students from other departments had gathered, whispering and pointing at Jack. "Is it true you watched them set your own bone?" called out a purple-skinned Andorian from the astrophysics department. "Yes," Jack confirmed, starting to look a bit uncomfortable with all the attention. "And you didn't require sedation?" asked another student with antennae that were standing straight up in shock. "Just local pain blockers," Jack explained, trying to make his way through the crowd to his room. Professor Vex stepped in. "That's enough questions for now. Human Reynolds needs rest to heal properly. You'll all have an opportunity to learn more about human physiology in the upcoming special lecture." The crowd reluctantly dispersed, and Professor Vex escorted Jack to his quarters. "I apologize for the commotion, but you must understand that your response to injury is quite remarkable from our perspective." Jack paused at his door. "Really, how would students from your species typically react to a broken limb?" The professor's green skin darkened slightly in what Jack had learned was the equivalent of a blush. "Well, a Xylonian with a fractured limb would likely be immobilized by pain, possibly losing consciousness. Our nervous systems are less compartmentalized than humans, it seems." "Interesting," Jack said. "I guess we all evolved different ways of handling injuries. For humans, staying functional despite injury was probably an evolutionary advantage." "Indeed," Professor Vex agreed. "Well, rest well. The medical staff will check on you tomorrow." After the professor left, Jack entered his room and carefully sat on his bed, finally allowing himself to grimace more openly now that he was alone. The pain blockers were wearing off, and his arm throbbed uncomfortably. He reached for the pain medication the doctor had provided, grateful for the advanced alien pharmaceuticals that worked without the side effects of Earth painkillers. As he swallowed the medication, his communication device chimed. It was a message from Trill. "Human Jack, the Xenobiology Study Group has questions about human bone healing if you feel well enough to educate us tomorrow." Jack smiled and sent a quick affirmative response before lying back on his bed. He hadn't expected to become a living educational exhibit when he'd applied for the exchange program, but if his broken arm could help build understanding between species, maybe the pain was worth it. The next morning, Jack woke to find his arm still sore, but notably less painful than a similar injury would have been on Earth. The alien medical technology was impressive. He carefully dressed himself, discovering the challenges of doing everything one-handed, and made his way to the academy cafeteria. As soon as he entered, a hush fell over the room. Dozens of alien eyes turned to stare at him, and then a path cleared to a table where Trill, Cleeks, Drax, and several other medical students sat. "Human Jack," Trill called, waving one of her slender blue arms. "We saved you a nutrition station." Jack nodded in thanks and made his way to their table, aware of the continued stares from around the cafeteria. "How is your structural damage today?" Cleeks asked as Jack sat down. "Much better, thanks," Jack replied, looking at the assortment of food options the cafeteria AI had prepared for his human physiology. "The pain is manageable and the cast is surprisingly comfortable. We've been researching human bone healing," Drax said, his scales a studious shade of orange. "Is it true that human children's bones can heal completely with no lasting evidence of the break?" Jack nodded as he awkwardly attempted to cut his food one-handed. "Yes, especially when we're very young. Our bones remodel themselves completely over time." Melia, who didn't eat in the conventional sense but absorbed nutrients through her exosuit, leaned forward. "And you simply wait for this healing to occur naturally?" "Mostly," Jack confirmed. "We set the bone in the right position, immobilize it, and let biology do the rest." Trill watched Jack struggling with his food and hesitantly extended one of her arms. "May I assist you?" Jack paused, then smiled. "Yes, thank you. It's harder than I expected with just one hand." As Trill helped cut Jack's breakfast into manageable pieces, Cleek's antennae twitched with curiosity. "In my species, a broken exoskeleton segment would require immediate molting and regrowth. The pain would be incapacitating, different biological solutions to the same problem," Jack observed. "That's what makes xenomedicine so fascinating." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Professor Vex, accompanied by Dr. Zorn and several other faculty members. "Human Reynolds," Dr. Zorn said, "how are you feeling this morning?" "Much better, thank you," Jack replied. "Your medical technology is impressive. We were hoping you might be willing to participate in a medical demonstration today," Professor Vex explained. "Many students and faculty are interested in learning more about human resilience to skeletal injuries." Jack hesitated. "What kind of demonstration?" "Nothing invasive," Dr. Zorn assured him quickly. "Simply a scan of your injury while you describe your subjective experience, followed by a question-and-answer session." Jack considered this. "I suppose that would be all right. When?" "After your morning classes, if you feel up to it," Professor Vex said. Jack agreed, and the faculty members moved away, already discussing the logistics of the demonstration. Jack turned back to find his tablemates looking at him with what he interpreted as expressions of respect. "You're becoming quite famous," Drax observed, his scales now a pleased purple, "for breaking my arm." Jack laughed. "That's hardly an achievement." "Not for the injury," Trill clarified. "For your response to it, many species here would consider such composure extraordinary." Jack shrugged. "I'm sure humans would be equally impressed by abilities your species take for granted." As they finished breakfast and headed to their first class, Jack found himself the center of attention everywhere he went. Students from departments he'd never interacted with nodded respectfully as he passed. In comparative anatomy class, the professor actually used him as an example of human adaptability. By midday, when it was time for the medical demonstration, a large lecture hall was packed with students and faculty from across the academy. Jack felt distinctly uncomfortable as he was escorted to a platform at the front where a medical scanning device had been set up. Dr. Zorn addressed the assembled crowd. "Today, we have a unique opportunity to observe human response to skeletal trauma. Human Reynolds has graciously agreed to share his experience with us." The doctor activated the scanner, and a three-dimensional holographic image of Jack's arm appeared above the platform, showing the broken bone with the advanced healing mesh working to knit the fracture. "As you can see, Doctor," Zorn explained, "the radius bone has sustained a complete fracture. In many species, this would result in total incapacitation. Yet Human Reynolds remained conscious, coherent, and remarkably calm throughout the injury and treatment." Jack felt his face growing warm as hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. "Human Reynolds, perhaps you could describe your pain experience both at the time of injury and now," Professor Vex prompted. Jack cleared his throat. "Well, when it first happened, there was a sharp, intense pain, what we call acute pain. It was definitely unpleasant, but not overwhelming. Now it's more of a dull ache when I move wrong or put pressure on it." A Fluvian student with translucent tentacles raised one appendage. "But how did you prevent yourself from entering a pain shock response?" Jack considered this. "Humans don't typically go into shock from a simple fracture unless there's significant blood loss or trauma to multiple systems. Our bodies compartmentalize pain to some extent." "Fascinating adaptation," murmured Dr. Zorn, manipulating the holographic image to zoom in on the healing bone. "Notice how the human bone is already showing signs of callus formation, even with our accelerator technology only supplementing their natural healing process." For the next hour, Jack answered questions about human bone structure, pain tolerance, healing processes, and Earth medical practices. Some questions were straightforward, while others revealed profound differences in how various species experience their physical forms. "On your planet," asked a gaseous entity floating in a containment field, Do humans regularly continue functioning despite physical damage? Within limits, Jack explained. Minor to moderate injuries don't usually stop us completely. We adapt and keep going when we need to. Is this a cultural practice or biological imperative? Asked a crystalline being whose thought processes were conveyed through light patterns. Both, I think, Jack replied thoughtfully. Biologically, we can function through pain, but culturally, there's often value placed on toughing it out or pushing through discomfort. As the session continued, Jack became aware that the aliens weren't just curious. Many seemed genuinely impressed, even awed by what to him was a completely ordinary response to injury. When the demonstration finally concluded, Professor Vex approached Jack with all four hands clasped in what Jack had learned was a gesture of deep respect. "Human Reynolds, you have provided an invaluable learning opportunity for our academy. The insights gained today will enhance our understanding of human physiology and inform our medical protocols for human patients." "Happy to help," Jack said, feeling somewhat embarrassed by the formality. "Though I hope I won't need to break any more bones for educational purposes." This comment elicited a wave of the clicking sounds that passed for laughter among several species in the audience. As the crowd dispersed, Trill, Cleeks, Drax, and several other students from Jack's cohort approached. "That was most informative," Cleeks said, his carapace shimmering with excitement. "I had no idea humans could maintain such functionality despite structural damage." "We're hosting a study session on comparative trauma responses tonight," Trill added. "Would you join us?" "Your perspective would be valuable." Jack agreed, and as they walked together toward the library, he found himself in the unusual position of being treated as an expert simply for having experienced a common human injury. In the library, a group of about 15 students from various species had gathered around a large table. Holographic displays showed anatomical diagrams of different species alongside data on pain response systems. "Human Jack is here," announced Drax, his scales now a bright, excited orange. The gathered students made room for Jack at the table, and he found himself the focus of intense curiosity once again. "We've been comparing trauma responses across species," explained Melia, her exo-suit projecting a series of charts. "The differences are quite remarkable." Jack looked at the data with interest. "What have you found so far?" Trill manipulated the holographic display. "For aquatic brennarians, even minor structural damage causes immediate shutdown of all non-essential systems to conserve energy for healing. Cleeks' species enters a protective molting cycle when exoskeleton damage occurs. Drax's people experience color immobilization, where their scales lock into a protective pattern that renders them motionless. All completely involuntary responses," added Cleeks, "not subject to conscious override." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "Whereas humans have some degree of voluntary control over our response to pain and injury, we can choose to keep functioning if we need to within limits." "Precisely," Trill's 6 eyes blinked in excitement. "This voluntary override capability appears rare among known sentient species." For the next few hours, Jack participated in their comparative study, contributing his personal experience and what he knew of human medical science. The alien students were particularly fascinated by the concept of human children deliberately engaging in risky physical play despite past injuries. "You mean human offspring will climb trees even after falling and breaking bones previously?" Asked a gelatinous student named Blob, its transparent body rippling with astonishment. "Absolutely," Jack confirmed. "I climbed plenty of trees after my leg healed, just more carefully." "Extraordinary risk assessment calculations," murmured Cleeks. As the evening progressed, the discussion moved beyond immediate trauma response to long-term adaptation and healing. Jack found himself learning as much as he was teaching, particularly about species whose bodies could regenerate limbs or heal in ways humans couldn't. "In many ways," observed Melia, "humans seem to have evolved a psychological adaptation to compensate for your limited physical regenerative capabilities." Jack had never thought of it that way, but it made sense. That's an interesting perspective. We can't regrow limbs or regenerate organs the way some species can, so maybe we adapted by becoming mentally resilient instead. As the study session concluded and the students prepared to return to their dormitories, Professor Vex appeared at the library entrance. "I'm pleased to see such enthusiastic cross-species academic collaboration," the professor said. "Human Reynolds, the medical staff would like to perform a follow-up scan of your injury tomorrow if you're agreeable." Jack nodded. "Of course." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of classes, medical checkups, and what felt like endless questions about human physiology. Jack became something of a minor celebrity at the academy, with students from all departments seeking him out to ask about human resilience. His broken arm had unexpectedly become a bridge between species, a tangible example of biological differences that sparked curiosity and understanding. On the day his cast was scheduled to be removed, Jack arrived at the medical bay to find not only Dr. Zorn waiting, but also Professor Vex and a small group of senior medical students who had been granted permission to observe. "How does it feel today?" Dr. Zorn asked as Jack sat on the examination table. "Good," Jack replied. "I barely notice it anymore unless I try to use it, Doctor." Zorn activated the scanner and examined the holographic image of Jack's arm. "The healing has progressed exactly as expected. The bone has fully remodeled, with the accelerator technology enhancing your natural healing process. We can remove the cast today." As the doctor used a specialized tool to carefully remove the high-tech cast, the observing students watched with intense focus. When the cast came off, revealing Jack's slightly pale but otherwise normal-looking arm, there was a collective sound of appreciation from the audience. "Remarkable," said Dr. Zorn, gently manipulating Jack's arm to test its mobility. "Full structural integrity has been restored. How does it feel?" Jack flexed his arm cautiously, then more confidently. "A little stiff, but no pain. It feels good." "You'll need to perform these exercises twice daily for the next week," Dr. Zorn explained, demonstrating a series of movements designed to restore full flexibility and strength. "But you're cleared to resume normal activities." After completing some final scans and officially discharging Jack, Dr. Zorn addressed the observing students. "The human healing process, even enhanced by our technology, demonstrates remarkable efficiency. Note the complete remodeling of the bone matrix and the rapid restoration of functionality." As Jack prepared to leave, Professor Vex approached him. "Human Reynolds, your contribution to our understanding of cross-species medical responses has been invaluable. The data collected during your treatment will inform our xenomedicine curriculum for years to come." Jack smiled, somewhat embarrassed by the formality. "I'm just glad something positive came out of my clumsiness." "Far more than positive," the professor assured him. "Your experience has inspired several students to pursue specialization in human medicine, and a research team is now developing new pain management protocols based on our observations of your response mechanisms." As Jack left the medical bay, he found Trill, Cleeks, Drax, and several other students from his cohort waiting outside. "Is it fully healed?" Trill asked eagerly. Jack held up his arm and flexed it. "Good as new." "We're having a small celebration in the recreation dome," Drax announced, his scales a festive yellow. "To honor your recovery and thank you for all you've taught us." Touched by the gesture, Jack accompanied them to the recreation dome, where a small gathering of students from various departments had assembled. A table held an assortment of foods safe for human consumption, including a few items from Earth that must have been specially acquired for the occasion. As Jack entered, the assembled students raised their various appendages in a gesture of welcome and respect. Cleek stepped forward, his carapace gleaming. "Human Jack Reynolds," the insectoid student announced formally. "On behalf of the Interplanetary Academy of Xenomedicine student body, we wish to express our gratitude for your patience, openness, and willingness to share your experience with us. Many of us came to this academy to learn about different species, but few expected to gain such insights from a simple, Cleeks paused, antennae twitching in amusement. Or perhaps not so simple, broken bone. There was appreciative laughter from the gathered students, and Jack felt a wave of warmth that had nothing to do with his healed arm. "Thank you all," he said sincerely. "I came here to learn about your species and your medical technologies, and I've learned more than I ever expected. I'm grateful for how well you took care of me and for your curiosity about humans." Trill approached with a small device in her hands. "We made something for you," she said, presenting it to Jack. "It's a bone density scanner calibrated specifically for human physiology. So you can check yourself next time before you need a cast." Jack laughed as he accepted the gift. "Let's hope there isn't a next time, but thank you. This is incredibly thoughtful." The celebration continued into the evening, with students sharing stories of injuries and healing from their own worlds. Jack found himself at the center of a circle of alien friends, united not by their similarities, but by their willingness to understand their differences. As the gathering eventually wound down and students began returning to their dormitories, Jack walked alongside Trill, Cleeks, and Drax under the Academy's transparent dome, through which the unfamiliar stars of this sector of the galaxy shone brightly. "You know," Jack said reflectively, "back on Earth, a broken arm would just be an inconvenience, something to deal with and then forget. I never imagined it would become such a meaningful experience." "In Xenomedicine, we're taught that differences reveal more than similarities," Trill responded, her 6 eyes reflecting the starlight. "What seems ordinary to one species can be extraordinary to another. And worth celebrating," added Drax, his scales shifting to a content blue. "I believe," said Cleeks thoughtfully, "that this is the true purpose of the exchange program, not just to learn facts about other species, but to understand the unique perspectives we each bring to the universe." Jack looked up at the stars, thinking about how far he had come from Earth and how much he had gained from this unexpected adventure. His broken arm had healed, but something greater had been built, bridges of understanding between species that saw the universe through very different eyes. "I think you're right," Jack agreed, "and I wouldn't trade this experience for anything, even an unbroken arm." The 4 friends continued their walk under the alien sky, united by curiosity, compassion, and the shared experience of discovery that transcended their biological differences.